What are the worst injuries you have sustained doing the simplest, most mundane tasks that should not have caused any injuries? I dislocated my knee, putting socks on. I was standing near the foot of my bed and was doing a balancing act putting socks on. When I went to put my right leg back down, my pant leg somehow got stuck on the footboard of my bed. My jeans somehow then decided to rip and my knee moved in a way it was never intended to. I'm definitely a klutz and tend to find myself in weird situations like this far too often. I got out of bed a few weeks ago and turned my ankle, tore every ligament and have to use crutches now. Laughing with a friend of mine at Dairy Queen. Laughed so hard because he pulled out a condom instead of money and he thought everyone saw him, so I burst into gut-wrenching laughter, apparently rupturing my L4-L5-S1 vertebrae requiring emergency surgery. Holy crap, this one wins. I have the same ruptured discs and they've hurt for a decade now. I crashed a four-wheeler. If I would have destroyed them by laughing, that would have peed me off for life. Tore my ACL and meniscus in my right knee while pulling my pants up changing in the locker room after swim practice. Took 2 surgeries and 6 months of recovery to get back to normal because of pants. I am never wearing pants again. Broke my collarbone after accidentally rolling onto the floor off a bunk bed. It was the bottom bunk. I was sitting on a couch. There was a blanket on the floor barely covering my feet. While seated, I leaned forward to pull the blanket onto myself, pulled a muscle in my back and was out of work for 4 days. I've done this, walking and taking off a jacket, sudden lightning in my back, couldn't walk for a week, had to go to physical therapy for 3 months. Turns out I was not using my muscles correctly for years, had to relearn how to use my own body, so it, hopefully, won't happen again. PT is great BTW, even if you aren't in pain anymore. I injured my knee by crouching to pet a cat. I could barely walk for a few days and couldn't do any exercise or sports for nearly a month. I built a nice counter for our laundry room, installed the new washing machine, installed the wall-mounted dryer, made shelves with the leftover wood, and even found time to plant an apple tree my mom had bought, all in the same day, then slipped a disc when I was washing my hands. Yeah, but that's how it happens. You stop moving and your muscles are all worn out and get lazy and your posture sucks and some other muscles try to pick up the slack but they aren't meant to and you end up contorting something in a way it shouldn't be and bam, bedridden for a week. Been there. When I was a little kid, I fell over and broke my collarbone while sitting and eating waffles. I wish this was fake. I was once concussed after being dropped off late to school. Turned back to wave to my dad and ran smack straight into a stop sign and dropped cold. Mayo, imagine your dad is rushing to school to drop you off late and takes his eye off you for less than a second before you're face down on the pavement. Little me, around 8 years old, spent a few hours gazing through his telescope into the moon, the stars and the sky, and it was awesome. When I was done, I hugged my telescope, optical tube down and eyepiece up. I was very short, very short, almost telescope size back then, so, of course I tripped. By reflex I looked down, while at the same time, the big end of the telescope hit the ground, and my mouth caught the eyepiece, almost, right between the upper lip and the nose, went almost all the way in, and turns out my face is a gusher. In 2 spots it went all the way through my facemeats and hit my front teeth. Lucky me it didn't crack a tooth. Thanks for the trip, Mr. Telescope. Who knew stargazing was such dangerous activity? Sneezed, threw my back out. Did that while doing a push-up. Agony across my whole upper back for a couple weeks. You know all those terrible injuries you can get by exercising with heavy weights in the gym if you use poor technique? Well, how about subbing your toe on the power rack so hard you can't walk for days? My buddy decided to use the bench after someone pressing 3 plates per side was using. Not being a physics person, he unracked all 3 plates on one side, went around and began to unrack on plate from the other side. The bar flips up, smacks him, and drops the other plates on his big toe. He took a 8-year break from the gym after that. Pulled a muscle in my right butt cheek while taking a nap. Couldn't walk properly for the next 7 hours. The one cheek wonder. 2 years ago I tore my meniscus and blew out my knee playing ping pong at our office Christmas party. stepped to the left and went down hard. Worst part was 2 days later when I finally stubbornly went to emerg that the nurses keep me a pro athlete and the dude ahead of me had the exact same injury from a vicious hockey hit. A friend of mine tore his meniscus dancing at a frat party. He told me he went to get low, heard a pop, and couldn't really get back up. I got a hernia from taking a dump. Must have been a massive dump. I was standing at parade rest in formation when I was in the army. After a while I felt a sharp pop and a pain between my shoulder blades. I tore a muscle literally doing nothing. I broke my foot stepping off a curb. There was a minor pothole, and I mean very small dip, that I didn't notice when stepping and my foot rolled sideways as I put all my weight on it. Heard the pop. Didn't hurt too bad at first so I went about my day. When I got home I couldn't get my shoe off without unlacing it fully due to swelling. Went in the next day and yup, broke my foot by stepping off a curb. I lost a tooth trying to open a box of condoms. Mid-intercourse I covered my then girlfriend in a huge pool of blood trying to work out what happened. I thought I cut my lip or gum but I actually pulled a whole front tooth out. More recently I split my forehead open closing the back door. I now have a Harry Potter-like scar. Instant boner killer. I grabbed a manila file folder at work and got a paper cut that needed stitches. Everyone at work was kind and understanding and didn't mock me. The last sentence was sarcasm. They gave me heck. Try a paper cut from a cardboard box. I remember staring at it thinking I didn't know this was possible. I slept on my neck wrong and tore an artery. That created a blood clot which then lodged in my brain stem, causing a massive stroke. I spent a month in the hospital and had to relearn to swallow, speak, focus my eyes, stand, walk, and a dozen other little things. Don't fall asleep watching YouTube videos I guess. Now that's what I call a stroke of bad luck. I'm sorry that happened to you. I was cutting potatoes. Couldn't figure out why I couldn't cut completely through this specific potato. Turns out my finger was in the way. It wasn't a bad injury, didn't hurt at all, didn't need stitches, and was actually pretty funny. But there was a ton of blood, and all the other students and the teacher were all freaking out. Bleeding is fun. In college, I broke my toe tripping over my desk chair in my dorm trying to get to my alarm to turn it off in the morning. I was 7 years old playing tag at a local children's park with a few friends. It was about 6 o'clock 7 p.m. in the fall, getting darker by the second. I was running from the kid who was it, and because of how short I am, I ran into the plastic outside at the bottom of a walkway, making a very deep and wide gash right above my right eyebrow. I blacked out for about a minute or so. I came to without feeling any pain, and it didn't help that I have a very high pain tolerance. I felt something wet on my head, and put my hand up to it. Because it was dark out, young me saw the darker tinted substance in my hand. Thinking it was ketchup, I licked it. After about 10 seconds of processing the taste, I realized, oh crap, this is blood. I ran over to my dad, and he, laughing his ass off, decides to take me back to our neighborhood to consult with our neighbor and good friend, who was a nurse. She tells my dad to take me to the emergency room. At this point, he is laughing even harder. We went in, I got some stitches, don't remember how many, and I also got to be made fun of by my father. Edit. Turns out, running into things as a little kid while playing tag is a very common issue. I love kid logic sometimes. You ran into something outside, found something wet and dark on your forehead, and your first thought was ketchup, even though you were outside. 2 things have happened today that made me wonder if I'm the only one this crap happens to. First one, I burned my eyelids after the egg I was frying flew out of the pan and smacked me in the face. Second one, my son fractured his wrist by banging into a pole while he was walking down the street. I'm just imagined the egg being completely still in the pan and then suddenly shooting towards your face. Not me, but my husband. He brushes his teeth very hard and fast. One day, he somehow hit his teeth and broke the toothbrush in half then stabbed himself in the cheek. After 2 hours of trying to get the bleeding to stop, I bought some butterfly sutures to close the wound. Unfortunately, he did the same thing again a week later. He blames me for buying cheap toothbrushes. Get him an electric toothbrush, for the sake of his enamel. Christmas is coming. I used to skateboard about 25-30 kilometers a day when I lived in Amsterdam for at least 3 years straight. Never had any injuries or accidents. It's as easy and automatic as riding a bike as a Dutch person. When I went out to skate for 2 minutes in the UK, I fell and broke my collarbone right away. I blame having to ride on the other side of the road and bad luck. Okay, broken collarbones are painful AF. I'm sorry that happened to you. I stepped on my finger and broke it when I was tying my shoe once. You really have to try hard to do something like that. I'm proud of you, LOL. I've stabbed myself in the butt cooking a pork chop. I also have a 4-inch scar on my inner arm off playing on a swing. But I constantly hurt myself in stupid little ways because I'm so dang clumsy. I am so sorry about your butt injury, but I need the story behind the injury, please. I broke my ankle while walking down a street in a foreign country. Slipped on a wet drain cover in a sidewalk. Surgery that night. 2-week hospital stay, then managing the rest of the study abroad on crutches. Years later, I now have major arthritis in the broken joint, which is more and more significantly limiting my mobility. Bonus: managed to break my toe by stubbing it while walking across my bedroom the day after I got back from a trip to a different foreign country. All my friends assumed I'd injured myself abroad again. TRDR. Walking normally leads to broken bones. TRDR. Walking normally leads to broken bones. Walking normally in a foreign country leads to broken bones. Not me personally, thank God, but someone I know cut off their finger slicing a bagel in half. Using a handheld mixer to puree some mushrooms. Mushrooms clog the blades. I use my finger to remove the mushrooms and without thinking press start and cut my finger. 10 minutes later do the same thing with my other hand. I think you need to stay away from power tools. My wife worked out during the first 8 months of her first pregnancy, modified as necessary as our son was growing. She set a personal record of 200 pounds deadlift at the 8-month mark. She was scolded as that was not the time for PRs, but impressive nonetheless, and she threw out her back bending over to pick up laundry on the floor. Bloody heck, that first part is impressive, so is the second part, but for different reasons. I pulled a muscle in my hand while wiping my ass once. I also damaged my vocal cords because I held in a sneeze. I punched myself in the mouth and chipped a tooth. I was putting on a bra. I'm currently dealing with some sort of elbow and arm tendonitis from, presumably, using a stress ball too much. Bonus: I was only using it to re-strengthen 2 other injuries. My mum broke her foot stepping out of the front door. The step is about 4 inches. She was in her 30s. She had lived in the house for years and used the step every day without incident. She doesn't have osteoporosis or any other bone problem. She didn't fall. She just put her foot down slightly off center, and it snapped one of her metatarsals. Breaking a stick for firewood. It was about the thickness of a nickel. I was breaking it how I always break sticks that size. Thumbs out and push through the middle. Super simple and effective. Well, apparently my thumb had popped out when I started this process and I hadn't noticed. I continued through the stick breaking process until I felt my thumb go the wrong way, dropped the stick and realized what just happened. This was at summer camp, so I had a brace that kept my thumb in the thumbs up position all summer. Did that all the time and in all photos. So much so that it became natural for me to post thumbs up in photos. I fractured my wrist falling off a couch. I broke my wrist shooting a basketball. I don't even know how it happened. I was in middle school and went up for a shot, then came down and was crying in pain. But yet I didn't make basketball tryouts. Feels badman. You have been visited by the doggo of chores. This doggo will do all your chores, but only if you comment clean well doggo. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.